everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, this week I have been busy preserving things around the homestead because I am participating in the Every Bit Counts Challenge, which is a preservation challenge that was created by Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead. She challenges everyone that in the month of August that you preserve something, anything, no matter how large or how small, every day in the month of August. And today's video is the first weekly video that will show everything that I've preserved within that week. Now, August 1st was a Tuesday, and today is Friday, so that I can show you on Saturday everything that I've preserved. So this video is going to show you the first 4 days of everything that I preserved. So let's get started. Day one of the challenge, I decided to preserve two different things. In the morning during chores, I decided to pick some okra from the greenhouse to preserve. Kevin absolutely loves okra, and I thought that I could preserve some in the freezer for him and he would love it. There wasn't a whole big harvest, just a few little okra pods, but every bit counts, so I decided to steam what I could. Before I freeze them, I'm actually gonna blanch the okra, and I like using the steam blanching method. I did rinse off the okra before I started, just in case there was any debris or bugs or that kind of thing. Then I had to chop the tops off of them. See, my harvest was really kind of sad, but like I said, every bit counts. So just cut off all of the tops, put them in my steamer basket to get ready. Now, as a reference, I am using the book Freeze Fresh, which I love, and it tells how to freeze okra pods. That is why I'm using the steam blanching method, because that's what she recommends. You put it in the steamer basket for about 90 seconds and you come back and just toss them around to make sure that, you know, each of them gets steamed appropriately. Put the lid back on for another 90 seconds, so 3 minutes total. After that, you just take them out of the steam and put them in some cold water. Now you can use ice water, but I just use cold water and let them cool down for about 3 minutes. I just stir them around, make sure that all of them get the cold water. Then just drain out, I just drained out the water, and then I went over and spread them out on a towel so that they could dry a little bit. They were a little slimy when stuck to the pan. Had some slime on there. I tried to spread them out a little bit. They were slimy. And so I just dried them off a little bit more before I could put them on a parchment paper on a plate, basically. I wanted to separate them and freeze them first before I put them in a freezer bag. So I just spread them out on this platter, actually, and then popped them into the freezer. After a few hours, they were frozen enough for me to put them in a freezer bag. This quantity was just fine in a quart-size freezer bag. After I put them in there, I squished as much of the air out as I possibly could, and then kind of flattened it as much as I could before I put them in the freezer. The next project for that same day, the first day, was to take care of some of this basil. I have so much basil, and it's been a while since I've cut it back. So I decided to just cut back 1 bucket worth of basil and turn it into pesto. We love pesto on our homestead. Even though we're keto right now, we make a keto pesto pizza, and we love pesto chicken. 1 plant made a nice basket full. Now, just recently, I did an entire video on how to make pesto and shared our pesto recipe, but it calls for, in a blender or in a food processor, some garlic, just chopped up, and then you add your basil leaves. These are 4 cups of basil leaves. Just shove them down in there. Add some nuts. I like to use walnuts, and some salt, some pepper, and then turn on the food processor and just really slowly add olive oil until it's all gone. I'm just gonna stir this up a little bit to make sure there are no big chunks sticking on the side. And then I'm gonna add all of the Parmesan, 1 cup of shredded Parmesan. And then we're just gonna mix that up really well before we package it. I really like to freeze pesto. I put them in a freezer bag in 1 cup increments because generally that's about as much as we use for 1 meal. And I just pour it into a freezer bag using one of these handy dandy bag holders. And you can see on this day we ended up getting 1 quart bag full of okra and 5 meals worth of pesto. Day 2 of the challenge, I started kind of a multi-day project actually. It started off by getting some red peppers from the greenhouse. These are lipstick peppers, but I also had a bunch of my favorite Ajvarsky peppers in the refrigerator. These are the Ajvarsky peppers. They're so beautiful and huge. I think I had like 12 or 14 of them that I needed to process. So we are going to be roasting these red peppers and freeze drying them today. And I just start by cutting out the stem portion, and when you pull on that, like all the seeds come out. It's kind of perfect. There's barely any seeds left on the inside. Just like that. That's a lipstick pepper. Same thing happens with the Ajvarsky peppers. Just tap out the rest of them. And then put them on an oiled cookie sheet. We're actually going to be broiling these in the broiler for about 7 minutes per side until they get black, like super black. That's not black enough. I ended up doing this like 5 or 6 times under the broiler before they were all done, all black and soft. And then I put them in this pot here and covered them up with a lid for about 20 minutes to have that skin come off really easily. So you peel off all of this skin because it doesn't really taste good. It's kind of plasticky. And I rolled it up and I put them on a tray, a freeze dryer tray on one of these silicone mats. While I was doing all of that, I said, hey, you know what? Red peppers are the perfect time. When they're red, it's the perfect time to save seeds. So I saved the lipstick pepper seeds and the Ajvarsky pepper seeds separately on paper plates, and I just let them dry out there for a while. I only had 1 out of 4 freeze dryer trays full, so I picked a bunch of Sugar Rush peach peppers and some of the ahi peppers, and I just chopped off the stem parts and I left all the seeds inside because Kevin loves the hot peppers and all the seeds. And I just filled up the rest of these 3 trays with these peppers, and I basically freeze dried them whole. Aren't they beautiful? Oh my gosh, their colors are amazing. So I put these in the freeze dryer, close the lid, and that'll take about a day and a half, 2 days to freeze dry. Day 3 on the Homestead Challenge was about beans. We are growing purple potted pole beans. They're so prolific. I can't even believe how many they've been growing. I went out to pick what I thought would be a small harvest, and I ended up getting a ton of beans. 2 giant bags of beans. That was the good news. The bad news is probably about half of those were too big to eat. They were we've just been too late getting them, and about half of them, so you can see, too big and just right. The big ones went to the pigs, and the ones that were the right size, I pulled the stem part off and then put the rest of the beans into a steamer basket. So I'm going to end up steam blanching these and putting them in the freezer. Kevin really likes green beans that have been in the freezer. We love to pan fry them in a cast iron pan with some oil until they're almost burnt. They taste so good. So really the same process as the okra. We're just going to put these into a steamer basket with steam. Let them steam for, I think in this time it was 5 minutes total. So 2.5 minutes. Then stir them up and another 2.5 minutes and put them in the cold water. See, isn't it fun that our purple beans, when you cook them, they turn green? I think that's pretty fun. It's like a little magic trick. Stir those around to get the cold water around them. Leave them there for about 3 minutes for them to cool down. And then we're going to transfer them to a towel again. Dump them out and then spread them out a little bit, and then we're just going to let them drain and we'll pat them dry a little bit before we put them in the gallon freezer bag. And again, I'm going to press as much of the air out as I possibly can before zippering it and putting it into the freezer. We ended up with 4 meals worth of beans this go around. Day 4 of the challenge was actually a really busy day. The freeze dryer was done, so the roasted red peppers could come out. You can see just how light and kind of crispy and kind of airy they are. It's really pretty amazing what the freeze dryer does. I decided to just put these in a jar because I'm going to use them shortly to make roasted red pepper Alfredo. And I'm going to use a vacuum sealer, a handheld rechargeable vacuum sealer that we found on Amazon, just to vacuum seal it as much as I can. And then just within a few days, I'm going to use at least half of those to make a recipe. It's a super handy dandy gadget there. Vacuum seals that up really nicely. The other peppers, obviously, were done too. The Sugar Rush Peach looked beautiful and the ahis look beautiful. We have decided to powder these, at least this batch, powder them. A friend of ours gave us an idea to do this and then to have the powder kind of in like a salt shaker that seals up so they don't get clumpy. So I decided to use my Vitamix, kind of filled that to the brim a little bit, and really grind these up and pulverize them. The Vitamix did a really great job. And I decided to store these in like jelly jars, 8-ounce jars. And then it made like 1.5 jars, this first batch of the Sugar Rush Peach. I put an oxygen absorber in each of them, and then canning lids on them both, and then used that portable rechargeable vacuum sealer again on both of them. I did the same exact thing with the ahi peppers. I ground them up and I'm gonna store them in the exact same way. Isn't that color amazing? Kind of looks like mac and cheese powder. Vacuum seal worked really well on that. Got 3 jars for storage. And then the pepper seeds were done. They were dry by that time. It was a couple days. And so just for now, I'm going to store them in little 4-ounce jars and label them until I figure out what I'm going to do with them. And just use the same method as the other jars. The second part of day 4 was a big canning project, actually. We had more tomatoes coming out of the greenhouse. So they're getting so tall, I need to use a ladder to harvest them. Picked some beautiful sauce tomatoes, paste tomatoes. Man, those are gorgeous. And of course, I had to also pick some beautiful Jet Star tomatoes. Our favorite, look at these. Oh my gosh, they're huge. And they are so beautiful. We're so pleased with how well they're doing this year. So with this batch of tomatoes, we're going to be canning salsa. Now I'm going to be canning a recipe that I just did a video on, and I am turning the salsa into picante sauce again. So in order to make this salsa, you have to start off by coring the tomatoes and then skinning them, which is really easy. Once you have the cores taken out, you just put the whole tomatoes right in boiling water for not too long until the skins split. And then you take them out of the boiling water and put them in cold water until they cool off. It doesn't take long at all. And then the skins just slide right off the tomatoes. I'm using the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving for this recipe, and the recipe is called Fresh Vegetable Salsa. Now I've learned a cool trick from my friend Jessica at Three Rivers Homestead. She says that canning goes so much better if you are organized ahead of time. So I brought everything out that I was gonna need, all the vegetables, the tomatoes, the green peppers, the jalapeno peppers, onions, some garlic, cilantro, vinegar, cumin, and some tomato paste from Azure. Love that tomato paste. Okay, let's start off by roughly chopping these tomatoes. I actually needed 14 cups of diced tomatoes, and so I filled that 4-cup measuring cup up like 3.5 times. Used my favorite Vidalia chopper to chop up the green peppers and the onions. And for the jalapenos, I just cut the tops right off of them and cut them in half. We're gonna keep all the seeds in there. Kevin loves the spice. And then I'll use my chopper to also chop up those jalapenos. Putting some minced garlic in there as well. And then I'm just rough chopping some cilantro. It needs almost a loose cup of cilantro. This recipe calls for tomato paste in it, which really thickens it up. I love it. All that's left is some vinegar and cumin. Then all I had to do was mix it up really well and put it on the stove top. I need to get that boiling, and once it comes to a boil, then I'll have it simmer. Look how beautiful that looks. It will simmer for 30 minutes before we can get started canning it. Now I am choosing to turn this salsa recipe into picante sauce. Picante sauce is really just blended salsa. It's just a smoother salsa. I do want to tell you that the ball canning book doesn't say you can blend it, but I felt confident that it would be okay. I'm just going to go through the normal canning procedure for this hot water bath canning. Salsa, you fill up to a 1/2 inch to the top of the jar and swirl out any bubbles, measure to make sure you've got 1/2 inch, clean off the rim, put a new clean lid on, screw on the ring, and put all your jars into your canning pot. These are going to process for 20 minutes. Actually, I'm going to process them for 25 minutes. Because of our altitude, we need to add 5 more minutes. When they're done, we can take them out, and they're absolutely beautiful. So I think that this week started out great. Lots of wonderful things from the garden that I preserved for the next winter and the next year, maybe even more. Next week I have lots more to preserve, so next Saturday you'll see another video of more things that I preserved over the week. I hope that you join me back here. I also want to encourage you guys to go over to Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, her YouTube channel, and her Instagram account, where she is posting everything that she's preserving throughout the week. You guys, lots of people have joined in on the Every Bit Counts challenge, and you can follow them by searching hashtag Every Bit Counts challenge on YouTube and following that same hashtag on Instagram. Now, every day I will be posting on Instagram and on Facebook what I have completed for that day. And then, like this video, I'll be compiling all of that into a video on Saturdays through the rest of the month. I hope that you're enjoying it. If you're enjoying videos like this, make sure that you hit the subscribe button below. And also, if you'll share this on your social media, it would be a great help to us and our homestead. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.